Hi, the Mudbrooker here. Been a little busy the last few days. Some of these things are ready to be put away, some are ready to be seasoned, some are in the middle of being cleaned up yet. But before I get into the subject of today's video, I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. Kay's Kist, Benedict Riggers, Joy Jones, Damian Bamer, Leo, Theodore Engelke, Rudy Valvano, Kiasby, John Wheeler, CJ, Sarah, and my newest patron, Jim Price. Today, I'm going to have me a little bit of Drambuie in their honor. Good stuff, Drambuie. Here's to you guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to join them, I'll put the link down below. Anyway, today's subject is wire wheels. I got this nice little Wagner ware Scotch bowl. Pretty cheap, 20 bucks, but you'll notice how shiny it is. That has been wire wheeled pretty heavily. Using a wire wheel on cast iron will burnish the surface. People think of cast iron as being a very hard, brittle metal, but in truth it's actually pretty soft, especially when compared to steel. And when you burnish something, basically what it does is it smears the surface and polishes it, and it makes it very, very difficult to season this. So what I'm going to do is put this in a vinegar bath, and I'm going to see if I can get this roughened up a little bit. I want to etch it somewhat in the vinegar. They wire wheeled the inside maybe inch or so of this, but the inside's pretty good shape. That would probably take seasoning alright. And you can see on the bottom they didn't wire wheel that area inside the foot ring. And you can see the original texture. It's pretty smooth, but it's not that bright, hard, polished look. Using a wire wheel on a cast iron pan is usually a bad idea. There are a few exceptions, but if you're going to use it for your first line of cleaning, that's really a mistake. Something like this. It's hard to see, but this is a John Johnson company made in Birmingham, Alabama, and the lettering on that is very light, and if you went over that with a wire wheel, you'd end up pretty much erasing all of that. And that's a hard to find an unusual piece, and you pretty much destroy either your chances of identifying it at all or any value it had. Anyhow, I'm going to move my lights around back by my vinegar bath, and we'll throw this in and get it started. Alright, we're back here behind the wood stove next to my vinegar bath. In the wintertime, I usually switch over to using a vinegar bath instead of electrolysis indoors. Electrolysis does produce a bit of hydrogen and oxygen. It's not a huge amount of gas, but since I'm next to an ignition source, it's probably not a real good idea. So I switch over to vinegar, and it works good for derusting things. As you can see, I've used it a little bit, and I still got a big pile of stuff to go through over there. But I'm going to throw this in. Now I might have a little bit of a problem because it's going to have to go in there upright, and that ring in the bottom is going to trap gas. It'll produce a little bit of carbon dioxide as it etches, and a gas bubble under there, it'll be damp and wet, so that might actually rust a little bit more. But we'll see how it turns out and how hard that is to clean up. Now, you can use a wire wheel on cast iron occasionally. I need to add a little bit of vinegar to this. I have some 50-50 stuff all mixed up and ready to go. Now, you can use a wire wheel on cast iron occasionally. I use it when I have something that's pitted fairly badly on the cooking surface, and I'll use a wire wheel to kind of break the edges of the pits and smooth it up a little bit. But other than that, you really shouldn't use them on cast iron. I'm going to need a little bit more vinegar to top that off. But other than that, you shouldn't use them. Like I say, you should never use them if you don't know exactly what you have already and what you might be removing, because you don't want to do anything to cast iron that's going to remove material until you're absolutely sure of what's going on. So I'm going to top this off a little bit more, add some more vinegar and water to it. This is a 50-50 vinegar and water solution. Then I'll let this work for a few hours, and we'll be back and check on it then and see how far it's come. I'm going to have a look at this. It's been soaking for about 4 hours. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that you shouldn't let things soak for more than a half hour in vinegar, but I've never really had a problem with that, leaving things soak overnight. If I let this soak for a year or so, yeah, it could cause a problem, but it hasn't really begun to etch anything yet. That's still really polished, and it did start to rust a little bit more on the bottom, but I don't think that'll be much of a problem, because when I scrub it off, I should be able to scrub most of that off. It's not really deep rust, it's just kind of surface rust. So I will go ahead and let this sit overnight, and we'll see where we're at in the morning. This has been soaking overnight, and let's see what we got. You look close, you can see the little bubbles rising off of the metal. That's a good sign. It means it should have etched fairly well. It's still kind of smoothish, but I'm going to take this over to the sink, scrub it up, and we'll see where we're at. Well, curiouser and curiouser. I got this scrubbed up good, and I was a bit mistaken. It was in fact wire wheeled pretty heavily, but underneath the rust that was on there that they removed with wire wheel, this is actually nickel plated. And you can see where the plating is getting kind of thin right there. There's a little bare iron, and it kind of fades into nickel plating. And that bare iron there was really smooth before, and now you can see and you can feel that it's taken some of that slickness off of it. If I was going to season this on the outside, that would be just about ideal for reseasoning, but it has fairly intact nickel plating around the rest of it. So what I'm going to do is season the inside of this at a fairly low temperature. You don't want to get really hot with the nickel plating, but I'll season up the inside of this a bit, and I will polish that nickel. I'll show you how I'm going to do that when I get to that point. And this video is taking a bit of a turn in a different direction than I expected. You can also see on the inside that the vinegar etched the bare iron on the inside a bit. If you're using vinegar, one thing you'll notice is that it creates a lot of black residue on the outside of your cast iron. That's black iron oxide. It's kind of tough to get it all washed off, but if you don't get absolutely every bit of it off, it's not a problem. The black iron oxide happens every time you use your pans, and that is the type of iron that your body can actually use. That's the beneficial iron that you get from cast iron cookware. So if there's a tiny bit of that black residue left on a pan after you soak it in vinegar, don't panic, just go ahead and season it. A lot of that will wipe off when you wipe off the first layer of oil when you season it anyway. So I'm gonna get this seasoned up a little bit, get her shined up, and even though this video went a direction I hadn't figured, I'll be back and show you how it ends up. Since this video has gotten entirely sidetracked from the original topic, might as well take the opportunity to show you a little bit about plated cast iron. I gave this Scotch bowl a couple of coats of clarified butter seasoning on the inside, and I shined it up real nice with some superfine steel wool, and it turned out looking pretty good. Like I said, when I originally got this, it didn't look like it had been plated. It looked like it was simply cast iron that had been buffed half to death. So in order to show you how to correct that, I'm going to have to deliberately take a wire wheel to some sacrificial pan, buff it to death, and show you the process of getting that back to where it'll take seasoning again. But in the words of the immortal philosopher Bob Ross, there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. I'm going to show you this. This cast was polished before it was plated, and this is definitely nickel plating. Usually, Wagner didn't polish their iron before they nickel plated it, and Wagner used primarily nickel plating. This is a pick and fryer with a skillet lid. It's it's a two-piece combo cooker they call them. But Griswold primarily chrome plated things. This is it's actually an Erie, which was made before Griswold started putting their names on their pans in the early 1900s, 1910. And you can see that they really smoothed up and polished the outside of the pan. They didn't do the bottom. They really polished it up first before they chrome plated it. I prefer nickel plating just because I like the looks of it better than chrome. But either case, don't be afraid to use plated cast iron. You're not going to get huge amounts of nickel or chrome in your food or anything like that. And usually, most of the plating will be worn off on the inside of the pan to begin with. And a lot of times they didn't plate the inside of the pan to begin with. So go ahead and use it up as you want to. This is a Wagner Ware cornstick pan. And it's nickel plated. Like I said, I really like the look of the nickel better than the chrome. I like that more of a soft satin sheen to it. And what else was I going to say? Nickel plating and chrome plating doesn't really affect the value of any sort of cast iron. Unless it's absolutely pristine and brand new, then it'll be worth a little more. And in fact, plating that's mostly worn off can actually drop the price a bit. So, it kind of depends, but don't go overpaying for something just because it's chrome or nickel plated. Pretty much all manufacturers made chrome or nickel plated. Like I said, Griswold was mostly chrome, Wagner was mostly nickel, and I've had this lid for ages. You can see that's plated on the inside and out. And this here is an old skillet from the 20s or 30s. But don't overpay for it, and you'll find quite a bit of plated stuff out there. I know Lodge did some plated ware, and I think I've seen some Favorite plated ware as well, but it's all out there. And even though this video kind of ran away from me, I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll have to try again to make something for etching over buffed cast iron. Anyway, I'll see you all next time, and hope you enjoy yourselves.